It's been a long time since you've heard that sweet sound.
Mm-mm-mm. Too long
And
for me. Too
man,
long for me.
all the way around the globe and back again and around again. And here you are.
Good to be back. One sec.
Oh, special edition
There it
2H
is. That's the
Sojourner.
t-shirt. 2H Sojourner, 1689.
Oh man, so, for anyone who doesn't know, you know that other guy, Andre.
That
Yep.
other guy, where is that guy?
Well, he's on holiday again. Talk about like he's decided to. We were just mocking you last week for cashing in your chips.
I heard
Uh,
that.
but actually, what am I talking about? Because if anyone's cashing his chips in, it's like Andrew on his 15th holiday this year. So
Yeah, I think it's
anyway,
you know what it sounds like, Mike? I think it sounds like sour grapes.
maybe a little bit of that. All I'm saying is notice how admirably silent I'm being in all of this. Here I am slaving away, doing the work that everyone else should be doing. And where is
Yeah.
my Mediterranean cruise, Nick?
Dude, you got twins. You don't need a Mediterranean
Exactly,
cruise.
exactly. I just get their smiles in the morning and everything's okay. All right. So you're back, which is
I'm
amazing.
back.
And this is good. And we were worried about that for a while. We wondered if you would come back after, just the taste of the good life. But
It
yeah, you
feels
are,
like a whole world has taken place. I
I'm
mean,
sure.
6 weeks. So imagine it. You basically. So I go to London. I got the conference.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
hanging
you
out with
guys were rocking
Andre,
rocking the t-shirts at which conference? What was it called?
Proclamation Trust. It was the EMA conference.
Yes. And
Really, actually, a flipping awesome conference.
yeah,
Like
James
really
Hamilton.
enjoyed it. Like just whatever Proclamation Trust is doing, they're doing really well. Very gospel focused, very
Mm,
preaching focused.
mm,
Totally fixed on the Bible. James Hamilton's lectures on the Psalms were outstanding.
I'm a fan. Yeah.
Yeah, he totally nailed it. I mean, even though
Mm,
he's pre-mill, he would read many of the aspects of the Psalms in the same way.
yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
I think he was like really contributing something to a better way to read the Psalms. So yeah,
Amazing.
he's got two commentaries. I'm definitely going to be buying those. Came
Yes.
away
Oh,
like there were two speakers. The one speaker was like going through the book of Judges, the book of Joshua, and like really good preacher. But then James Hamilton like lecturing, and I
mm.
came away saying, I want to read James Hamilton.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Because he
and
just
his two volumes, I think it's a two-volume thing. That's is that right, or is it a whole
yeah,
set?
two
Two
volumes
volumes,
commentary
right?
through the Psalms.
And that's out on Lagos as well, so we can get that quite easily now. And
Yeah, just like when you like I remember when I was sitting under Del Ralph Davis, and like he's reading his Bible, and I'm like looking at my buddy's Bible because I'm hearing this translation. I'm like, it's not my ESV. Is it your NASB? Is it your NIV? No, 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 no. And then we see his Bible, and it's like all this like weird thing, and he's taken his Hebrew Bible and his Greek Bible, and he's sewn them together, and
ah,
he's translating on the spot. And then after that, you just sort of sit very quietly at his feet and just accept anything the guy says. And
exactly.
so there was a little moment like that with James Hamilton where he's like, when I was studying for the Psalms and I got the Bible for the blind, and I would listen to the first Psalm in Hebrew, and then I go back to the beginning and listen to Psalm 1 and 2 in Hebrew, and then I listen to 1, 2, and 3, and then 1, 2, and 3, 4, and then I worked through the whole Psalter and just going, okay, this guy's really
That's legit.
listened
Yeah,
to the Hebrew Bible, and you just want to
yeah,
like, okay, I think you've got something to say. I'm now willing to listen,
exactly. That's such a good
and
idea too.
yeah, it's very
What
good.
a great idea. The Bible for the blind. I wouldn't, brilliant.
Yeah, the Hebrew Bible for the
Yeah, the
blind.
Hebrew Bible. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
so
so he just really nails those connections between the Psalms and why Psalm 1 and 2 should be read together, and
mhm.
3 and 4 should be read together, and 5 and 6 should be
Mm,
read together, and just structurally just introducing things that anyone who would hear the audio Bible would probably have picked up on as an Old Testament
yes,
Jew,
yes,
but we compartmentalize it and have it in silos because it's all chapterized.
man, totally. No, that is great. I'm sold. Just hearing you
Yeah.
guys talk
So
about
so
it.
I mean, but dude, I mean, I don't know if Andre told you, but I was absolutely blown away by London.
Yeah,
London is the flippin' greatest town in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Oscar Wilde. If you're tired of London, you're tired of life. You know.
Yeah, it's I think different reasons.
Well,
He was sort of a gay party
potato,
guy.
potato.
Maybe Soho was good, and maybe that's what he liked. But
Yeah.
as an English speaking Reformed Baptist, it was like
I
London
know.
was like it's like I'd been grafted into my family tree,
Exactly. Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was just sucking on the sap of life.
Ah, brilliant.
You know, you walk
Now,
around and there's like, you go to Westminster and there's a statue of Oliver Cromwell.
oh
And
man,
you're just sitting here. This is where the Westminster Assembly sat and produced the
isn't that amazing?
confessions.
Oh, beautiful. And
You know, and there's, yeah,
now I'm gonna ask you a question, but I'm scared of this answer.
go ahead.
Did you go to John Gill's grave?
No. Is he
That's
buried
what
in London?
yeah, that's what I in Bunhill Fields
I've thought about going to that particular graveyard because that's like the place you want to be at the rapture.
at the
It's like
resurrection.
John Bunyan and John
Yeah,
Gill. It's like everyone's flipping flying out of there.
exactly. So John Gill's got this like super cool unmarked grave because it's so worn out and everything, but it's like quite a full on, you know, item there. You know, it's one of the
Yeah.
significant graves, except you got to know
Always
which one it
fresh
is.
flowers.
Yeah, well. Yeah, no, it's oh man, yeah, lots to talk about. London. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, London
You
was
love me some
amazing. So
London.
then
Yeah.
like had the conference and then my holiday began in earnest. So that was like sort of part of the sabbatical. Hanging out with Andre was fantastic. First time in the flesh.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. So we hit the pubs lunchtime every day, just hanging out,
mm.
just checking out London together. We just really enjoyed ourselves without Mike. It was just so awesome.
No, I
And
enjoyed myself without both of
we
you.
we sent you 100 selfies of us really enjoying ourselves.
No. Oh, jeez. It was one of the worst times of my life. What could I say?
Yeah.
Man, it's like I can't even get some
Yes, I have
sleep
a new
without
best
getting.
friend named Andre, replacing my old best friend. And
It's weird though, you know, because compadres, you know, it's a kind of like there's a weird kind of joy. I'm not even there, but I'm feeling the joy. But
exactly. I
clear
mean,
joy. There's some
you
kind
spent
of
a lot of time in London, so you're just
yeah,
like
I know,
reliving it all.
totally.
And then then the holiday began in earnest. And dude, I mean, it's the hop on, hop off, tiki tour, bus tour type thing. We basically just blitzing through places. That's what it was
Mm,
like. So we went through the Mediterranean on some cruises.
hmm.
And like basically you land at a port, you've got one day to check out the port and you're just running the whole time, bro. And like I think in the one day I did 13 miles of walking.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
that'd
That's a
just
lot of
about kill
Ks.
me. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the average person puts on 5 kilograms on a cruise, and I'm above average, so I put on more than five. And I lost it all, bro, walking around London at the end of my holiday.
Wow,
Yeah, it's just
man, love.
crazy.
Well, there we
Yeah,
go.
but some wonderful highlights.
So
Ephesus
now
was
here's the
amazing.
question:
Yeah,
if
yeah,
for any pastor who suddenly lands himself with like he wins the lottery or something and is able
yeah,
to do
yeah.
what you did, would you advise that he do that with that money?
Happy wife, happy life.
Mm-hmm.
It's here's my chauvinistic take on things. Yeah, men, or at least my sort of guy,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm on holiday when I've learned something new. Like I go to the British Museum and I look at a Greek manuscript and I say, "Hey, I can read that."
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on holiday.
Uh-huh.
But my
Yeah.
wife feels like she's on holiday when she's seen Phantom of the Opera. So it's like if I learn something and I go somewhere and the tour guide's just really enlightening me and I now understand
Mm.
Ephesus and the way in which the earthquakes covered it and it's the second best preserved site in the world, I'm like, tell me more.
Yeah.
I'm just really
Yeah.
enjoying this.
Uh-huh.
And Lynn's like, let's go watch a show.
Which is
And
like a form of judgment.
so from the point of view of good solid marital holiday time, it was really, really good.
Mm.
I would highly recommend it as one way to do a holiday.
Okay.
But I think it's not the only way to holiday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The better way is to sort of just find a place, put in some roots, get to know the people, have some great experiences, learn, go to the museums. Yeah.
Totally. No, I know. Yeah. No, well, I mean, it's down to that age-old question, you know. It's like, do you want to experience something? I don't know, because I know what would happen. You got all these practical things you could do with that money, you know,
Yeah.
and obviously it's a crying need, and everyone feels it, and everyone's got these things that they have to do, and yet, what's life for? You gotta just have a little experience here and there, and you can't take your new fridge with you, and but you will reflect on these things, and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
To
and
err on the
I
side.
think what also something really impressed me. I don't know. I mean, I've never done the Holy Land tour, Israel.
Yeah.
It's no longer the Holy Land, but they call it the Holy Land tour.
Hmm.
But Turkey is like basically a second Holy Land,
Yeah.
because that's where
Totally.
the Ark rested,
Right.
Mount Ararat. That's
Yeah.
where Tarsus is. That's where Asia Minor is. That's where the
Mm.
missionary journeys were taking place. That's where the seven churches of the Revelation were.
Hmm.
I mean, so we had a Muslim tour guide, this woman, and
Interesting.
in Turkey, the tour guides have to get a BA. They have to
Okay.
do a study for 3 years because
Hmm.
the history is so technical.
Right.
And she was ripping it, Bruce. She was like,
Amazing.
Paul had 4 prison epistles and he had 3 missionary journeys and he was here and he was there. And she was like almost quoting from Acts chapter 20 when he met with the Ephesian elders and they were weeping on each other's necks. And she's just pulling it all out as we're going on the Ephesus tour on the bus.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was just, yeah, it was profound. It was really
Nice.
profound. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'm sure it'll bleed out of you in the episodes to come. All these little
Dude,
insights
just
you
still
picked up along the
digesting,
way.
still
Yeah.
digesting. Feels like I'm bloated and I just got like slowly digested.
Yeah. Totally. Amazing. Well, we've got some stuff that we've planned going forward. We've got a really exciting interview with Jeff Taylor coming up.
T.
Uh,
Jeff Taylor.
that has just been confirmed, so that's great. I read his book a few weeks back, maybe a month back, and immediately told Andre to read it, send it to you.
Yep. Started
it's
it today.
it's it was just fantastic. It was just a great Kleinian book, and
Yes.
just filled with Klein's theology. He's unapologetic about it, and just obviously can navigate the scene well, and he knows what Klein said. So it's just one of those. Obviously,
Yeah.
if you're a Klein fan, you got to have this book. And he just got a great summary of Klein's theology, as you tend to have to
Definitely.
do up front if you want to
He's
put the.
almost like the guy you have to read before you read Klein because he makes Klein accessible and easy to
Yeah,
read.
yeah. So it's another one of those. Yeah, exactly. So, and we're always on the hunt for that kind of thing. So
Definitely.
that is present in that book. But then, of course, the thesis of the book is that there are no rewards in heaven. You get what Christ has earned. He is the reward,
Yeah.
and he is
This is one
uh,
of the big debates.
one of the big debates that's come up on our show a few times.
Yeah.
So I remember way back in the day, whenever I remember for whatever reason it came up with Chris Kahi a couple of times, so we were back and forth on that. And I think the thing is that Klein does allude to it in his Kingdom Prologue. There is a kind of short little statement he makes that suggests, okay, well, this is it. And then of course and he would take, I think, Jeff's view from based on that statement. But obviously that's you could read into it and whatnot. And so it's very different to what the normal reform position would be. And as Jeff says, it is the minority view. So it's a little bit of a hesitance to go there. And Jeff goes there 100%. So he just goes all the way. He argues it through and through, and there it is. And it's just a fantastic book. So I'll pause any more comments on that
Yeah.
because obviously we'll be looking at that in the future. But if you're interested, do stay tuned for that. And then the other thing we actually have a few other things planned as well. But let me just start by saying that one of the things that Andre and I mentioned already, and one of the things I've just kind of confirmed in a few what should we say, like not I don't know.
Behold, Mike's getting old. Social media.
Yeah, we've confirmed it on social media. Thank you. These we didn't get a lot done, by the way, while you were away.
I noticed. I was like
Yeah.
waiting for the podcast to
Well,
drop, and like, oh, there was one when I got back.
well, no. Well, what happened? We were frantically busy and we recorded a ton, but we just never uploaded it.
I
So
heard that.
you know what I mean. So I've still got it. I got it in the back. You might see those
Yeah,
episodes come out in bleed form over the years.
it's for the Patreon account. So now, if you
Exactly.
pay, you might get access
You
to
might get
like
access.
the hidden bank of unpublished podcasts. I know there's like at least 5 that I've done that have never been done,
I know.
but I'm
So
sure
they're
they're being
there.
binned somewhere.
No, they're there. They're still on the thing, and I always keep them as backups, but I never even bother to put the backup
Yeah.
up when we don't need.
It's like there's a few really bad things that were said, and it's like, oh, I don't know if we should publish that. Well,
It's just
if we need to say something, we'll put it out.
we're usually just so darn awesome all the time. So when it's like less than awesome, we just we're like hesitant
Yeah.
because why would you put anything less than our best? And at the end of the day, I think what all of that means is while you were away, we kind of missed you. And we're feeling the
Yeah.
void. The mojo was not working quite as well. So anyway, um, so there we were doing that thing, and we were talking about the need to just kind of we need to make this popular. I think Andre's feeling the burn. He's feeling like a lot of the popular demand for just addressing the subject of neo-Calvinism, of Christian nationalism, of theonomy, and all these things are making like this major comeback. It's actually quite a hot potato right now. We thought, okay, look, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna rewrite this thing in popular form anytime soon. So let's just give some sort of
Can we talk
uh
about what the Anglicans are doing?
no, we did not. We left that alone, and they knows to leave that alone too. Um, but what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll kind of try and popularize it or translate
Yeah.
it. So because I will admit that this here it is, yeah, this book is difficult, and that's because it's a PhD dissertation. It's not meant to be read actually. So there
It's
are
just for
parts
show.
there. There are parts that are just like intelligible, unintelligible at least, and they do. I'm not saying they don't make sense. I do think they argue what I'm trying to say, but they're just Greek and Hebrew and this and that and whatnot, and technical philosophical language, and so let's just actually just boil that down, see what it means, and then I think it would actually be a good book to have though, precisely because it's not, if it's like a reference book almost,
Yeah.
where it is, and then if you do want to go into it, it's a great book for hey, here's a full scale bibliography on what you could read on the subject, or here's some of the big arguments that go back and forth on this. So I think it is a good book to have, especially if you have some sort of guide, or if you just did want to plow through. Many people have done. Well, maybe our
And
little.
where can we find this book, Mike?
You can find it on Logos. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on yeah. You go to the internet. Just search the book, and it'll come up with all you need there. And it's
Well,
there.
sorry, what was the name of that book again, Mike?
The name is. Let's check the name because it's a difficult one. Covenant Lord and Cultic Boundary, which itself is unintelligible.
Yeah.
And again, our hope in this time is to chat this through. What do you think that means? Covenant Lord and Cultic Boundary. Tell me.
Yeah.
What do you think that means, Nick?
It's like God, it's God and church and state, or
Is
God
it?
and
I thought because I thought you would say it's like
Celtic boundary would be like,
it's an apologetics book against Jehovah's Witnesses. you know, like this is orthodoxy and this is the
yeah,
cultic boundary. This is where it gets weird. No, it's got nothing to do with cults and everything to do with sacred and secular and so
yeah,
forth.
cultus and culture.
Yes, exactly. And the covenant lord thing is because that's what all the reform guys are talking about, where this debate lies. So so what we're gonna do is just talk it through as we normally do in our discussions about books. Except
Yep,
this
sounds
time we're
good.
gonna try and get past chapter 2 and try and get to the end because we really do need
we,
to.
we shall endeavor to do so.
We'll shall endeavor, but we probably will fail. So
Not that we have succeeded, but we strive towards the goal.
at least we will get at least we will get to the point of starting you on your journey. You know,
Yep.
and then we just sometimes have to say goodbye.
And then we just like squirrel.
Even if it is just like a really dark place that we leave you,
Yeah.
and it's it's as midnight is setting in and things are getting scary. Sometimes we just got to go.
Yeah, sometimes we just feel the need to incarnate ADHD so you can resonate with us.
Exactly. All right, now what is the deal? Why even spend time on this subject and book? Well, because um like the church's ministry, the church's mandate, the church's cultural task. I mean, we have to be clear about this.
Church's cultural task.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it does it's question mark.
Does the church have a cultural task? Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the church's relationship to the cultural mandate?
Exactly. And
yeah.
And you might even take a step back further. I mean, because I think this has always been a thing. The church has thought about this forever, from the get. Obviously,
yeah.
You got Christ, and now you got culture, and now what do we do, and how does this work? Is the kingdom of this world or not? And so that everyone's got to think about this. But then what happened was, post Christendom, and things, and we now, it's like so stupid to even point that out because everyone kind of knows, okay, well, we are definitely moving into crazy secularism and so forth. And so here we are feeling the burn of that. And we all know, and we're all, theonomy itself, I think, was kind of a kickback to that reality. And it tried to, just almost like a fundamentalist approach to culture. And yet we just keep going into this tunnel of secularism and pluralism, and it's just like we like it or not, here we are, and it's wherever you are in the world and so forth. And then when I started writing this thing, it was like COVID kicked in, and it was almost
And
like this
all the
catalyst.
questions around government
It was
in your
amazing.
face.
Like I just finished writing, and then COVID's around, and I thought, wow, this is super relevant, but it turns out that the relevance has not stopped, and it's, the post-COVID world is almost like
Yeah,
accentuated that issue. There's been all sorts of things, and we've talked about this as we've gone through
100%.
the show, so it's not like something that's not on our radar, but now just to kind of connect those dots to people who are reading through the book. um
Yeah, I think we really need to equip Christians because I think there's a major temptation right now, isn't there? There's a middle right conservative resurgence in politics and political thinking.
yeah,
And Christians are wanting to hitch the church to this middle right conservative resurgence. They're wanting to, the church and the Daily Wire partnering
yeah,
in making America great again.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
anything that will give us a bit of ground, be like, jump
yeah,
on it. And
I mean, we're feeling anxious. Our children are being taken captive. They're being
yes,
targeted by leftist ideology,
terrible.
and we have to, out of either anger or anxiety, there's a reaction going on.
Yeah,
How do we react?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so everyone feels that. I think everyone can resonate with that, whether, no matter which way you go on the question, it's like that's the starting point, and
Yeah,
so that's why it's worth talking about. And I think we need to say up front as well, because it's such a deeply personal, you say kids and stuff like that. I mean, we're talking about a heated thing here.
yeah,
You're talking about vocation. We're talking about the way you approach ministry, ministerial philosophy, and those sorts of things. And I mean, it's almost naive to think we're going to have this like nice smooth answer. And I think it's helpful up front. And one of the things hopefully the book will do is just go, okay, that's probably not going to happen. We're probably not going to agree. Um, but it would be great if we could just kind of all remember that we're part of the same family and all Christians, and just hear each other, and just kind of create, wherever, jump on the opportunity to create a bit of nuance wherever we can, and then just let the clear lines emerge naturally. And then they are going to be there, and
yeah,
there are going to be some hard decisions that we have to make, and things that are going to cause tension, intramurally and within Reformed Christianity even. But you've got to do your best to get to that point where you can't avoid that.
yeah,
And
totally.
so I
What
think,
I think is going to be valuable is the fact that because the voice that's missing in this conversation is the voice of the pastor of the local church.
yes,
We're hearing
yes,
from the Al Mola.
yes,
We're hearing from the Jordan Peterson. We're hearing
yes,
from the Matt Walsh. We're hearing from the social critics like Ben Shapiro. We're hearing from the Martin Ileses of Australia.
mm,
But the person whose voice gets most neglected and the person whose voice gets overlooked as everyone searches for their favorite social critical podcast
mm,
is the faithful local pastor who's just telling the people how to love God and love their neighbor and do their work well during the week
yes,
and be
exactly,
faithful in their daily task and vocation.
exactly.
And I think as pastors, it's important that we
Yeah,
put that message out there.
the ecclesial theologian. That's what's missing from the picture. Yeah,
Not
to
the
use
public theologian,
no, the
the
ecclesial
ecclesial
theologian.
theologian.
Yeah, the theologian who does theology from the context of
Yeah,
the church for the church.
exactly.
That's what we need. We need more of that. That's another show. I actually want to come back to that. That's a big
Yeah,
thing.
that's a good point.
Yeah,
I think we need to call our podcast the ecclesial theologian.
yeah, it, Well, you know what? It's taken. Otherwise, I would have for sure.
Done.
Um, but that's really. I mean, I do say that up front in the preface of the book. I'm like, this is really what I'm exactly what why I'm writing. This is.
Yeah.
I'm not writing to every. It's not a popular work, but it's for pastors
No.
from a pastor.
Yeah.
And it's still academic, and that's cool because pastors can be scholars and so forth. And so they
Yeah.
should be, and that's okay. And so it's dealing with it at that academic level, but for the church from the church. And I think that is
Yeah. And
important.
we want to train the church to listen to their pastors again because they're so
Come
busy
on.
collecting these, big names to themselves who've got the constantly commenting on the hot headlines of the
Mm,
day.
mm, mm.
But the pastor who's faithfully expositing the age-old wisdom of the word of God, he gets overlooked. And yet his
Exactly.
words are so much more important.
Mm. Yeah. No, oh man, that is such a big topic. We need to spend some time on that. We'll come back to that one. That's a big one. That's a burning issue for me.
Definitely. Amen.
So so here we are, reformed pastors. Okay. And probably we're going to make a call on how to roll with this so you don't reinvent the wheel. You look around, you're in a fix. How do we approach culture? Well, I mean, thankfully the whole thing has been somewhat boiled down. If you're in the Lutheran camp, you kind of, or you have it even more boiled down, but the reformed expression of Christianity has kind of brought it down to this whole Kuyperian neo Calvinist idea, which is like, let's just go get them, let's transform it, let's change it, let's just go get stuck in. And it's a really positive view of how we can you know change culture and get stuck into all the cultural endeavors of the day. And you name it. And we're oversimplifying here, as we'll talk about in the book, but basically that's the idea. Go get them, very optimistic. Let's change things, and then sure, Jesus will come back and he'll bring in the perfect kingdom and whatnot. But we will have done a good deal of that, or at least there's some of it that will have some sense of continuity with what's coming. Whereas another view, which is a lot more pessimistic, right up front, is saying that's not going to happen. If anything, we've listen. It's going to go. We need a brace for impact. And
Yeah.
it's going to get really difficult. And you need to understand that even when you're dying and being persecuted, and like no one is listening to the church, no one cares what the church is saying. They're just killing the church. That is not God's gospel failing to have its
Exactly.
impact. That is how
They
the story
overcame
of
him by the blood of the Lamb and their word of the testimony, and that they loved their lives not unto death. That's that's
right.
that's that's how the kingdom comes in through the
Yes.
paradox of the humility of Christ's sufferings, imitated in His church.
And this is, I mean, you don't want to mock 2,000 years of church history
Yeah,
at that level. But at the same time, you know, you can see how automatically we just want to go kingdom, Jesus return. What is, it's almost like there's this inbuilt eschatology in the question. But we want to just kind of hold ourselves back a little bit because it's not a directly eschatological question immediately. Anyway, we need to think about covenant theology. We need to think about the things that give rise to a certain view. Because I don't think eschatology, just what I mean by eschatology here in this instance, is kind of thinking about your view of the end and the book of Revelation and so forth. I don't think that will carry the day. You can't rely on um, on prophetic literature to have this. There are clearer texts that ecclesiology, I think, that must almost come before those more obscure passages. So you almost need to really nail down what is clear. What can we, is there a law of gospel contrast, or is there not?
yeah,
Is there a covenant of works, covenant of grace, or is there not? And if these things are in place, then yeah, sure, you might have a view on eschatology in this area, or that area, or post-millennial, premillennial, but those things will play second fiddle to the more immediate framework concerns at that point, the clearer
and the doctrine
things.
of common grace is also very
Common
helpful.
grace, covenant theology, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
So, and then so you got to make a decision though. So the one has tended to be called Reform to Kingdom theology, right? But it's like a messy title, and there's a lot of stuff going on there because people mean a lot of different things when they say that. Sometimes they call it radical two kingdom theology. Sometimes they call it
That's a theonomic moniker. That's not what we call it.
no, they call it escondido theology because they think it's just coming from one place, you know.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you know, there is an equally kind of reductionist kind of label, you know, neo-Calvinism, which means it could mean a host of different things. So let's just oversimplify for now and just go, right, we got more or less this kind of more, maybe, I don't know, let's call it realistic, maybe pessimistic view, and then pessimistic in the sense of our impact on culture in the way the new neo Calvinists are talking about it, and then you got the neo Calvinists who are let's say slightly more optimistic in their view, just as a starting point. So you got to make a decision, and but what you soon find, okay, now we're talking to every single pastor and every single Christian. What you soon find that as soon as you jump into one of those two, you realize, whew, this thing's all connected to. We just mentioned eschatology, certainly ecclesiology. We just mentioned that. What we mean there, doctrine of the end, doctrine of the church,
Common
missiology.
grace. Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, like, how does the gospel preaching thing work in like low socioeconomic areas? And, you know, what are we supposed to do? What is the mission of the gospel ultimately? Is it a hospital building, or is it, you know, supplying food, or is it preaching the gospel, or is it both? Or, you know, it's missiology is the question at that point. Soteriology, because the doctrine of salvation, we're talking here about ultimately justification comes into view because it becomes a law gospel thing. And if Jesus has done what the first Adam failed to do, and that involved a cultural task, and then we're doing it, and then, you know, how does that all work? You know, we're asking a question very similar to the question of, you know, now that Jesus has fulfilled the law's requirements on our behalf, what do we do with the law? So it's that alone is a difficult one. So, you know, we're asking a kind of parallel question to that. It's soteriological.
Nomology. Yeah.
Nomology, yeah.
Natural
Christology,
law.
natural law
Yeah.
is in place. Yeah, exactly. Christology, of course, is in there because now we're talking about Jesus's reign, and, you know, you know, what is the extent of his reign, and, you know, all of those things are in view. So, I mean, it is like it becomes just a wildfire
Yep.
of theological issues. That's why it gets so full on in the discussion, and you see, I mean, you just start googling it and you check out the blogs, and next thing you know, I mean, it's like it feels like you're in this like
The battle
shouting.
lines are drawn and you're choosing sides.
Exactly, it is crazy. It's
Every,
crazy.
tribalism reigns and everyone else is an enemy who disagrees with you.
I remember it started off with me. I was like, well, you know, I went with a buddy to a video store back in the day when you had those, and we were both Christians, and, you know, there was all this trash up front, and we had to get through the trash to get to the videos, and then my approach was just like, well, let's, you know, hunker down, get the video we want, get out of there. I mean, what do you expect? It's like, this guy doesn't care, you know, get the video, he's selling the videos. The other guy with me wanted to you know, spend a considerable amount of his time and energy as a Christian trying to reform the video store, you know, and get, you know,
Yeah.
write a letter of complaint, get the council involved, and so forth. And it started as, well, you know, actually, shouldn't we just like take all that energy and just go and preach the gospel to the guy, you know, and then he gets converted and he just takes away the trash anyway. And you know, you have this dynamic unfold. Little do you know that this is exactly what the church has struggled with over the millennium.
Microcosm of the greater war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're you know, everyone's going to deal with it at some point. You've got to make these sorts of questions. Certainly if you're a pastor, and you know, here you are in New Zealand, my goodness, here we are. We have to figure out where those lines are because it's only going to get more complicated.
So, I mean, the Baptist Union right now, you know, one of their basic punchlines is, you know, transforming communities for Jesus.
Yeah, there we go.
You know, and every church has a coffee shop and an
Yes.
op shop
Yes.
and a counseling ministry,
Yes.
because it's all the building the kingdom, you know, realizing the kingdom. You are the catalyst for bringing the kingdom into being. Your kingdom come. Well, what are you going to do to bring that kingdom in?
Yeah.
You know, we're going to be transforming communities for Jesus.
Right.
And so that's like the tagline.
Yeah.
And which betrays a very transformational understanding of how God is building his kingdom.
Right. Now, you mentioned Baptists, and so we're, you know, this is a good point because this is not just a reformed thing. You know, yes, we're dealing with it at a reformed level, but just keep in mind, I mean, think about the charismatic scenario. It's like everything's a kingdom this, a kingdom that, a kingdom business, kingdom dog walking, kingdom that, you know, you just,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as just being a Christian. You have to be a kingdom,
It's
guy.
dominion theology. Yeah.
Right, which is a weird correspondence, and we've mentioned this before in a previous episode. But this weird relationship, bedfellows,
Yeah.
the theonomy slash kingdom now, dominion theology, charismatic things. It's bizarre, but anyway, we will come back to those sorts of things as we go. That's all by way of preface, because at the end of the day, we're saying that there's this guy named Meredith Klein that actually matters on this on this question, and people are like, what, Meredith Klein? Yes, Meredith Klein
Yeah.
matters deeply on this thing. In fact, uh, you know, you might say, and some have said that if you embrace his rendition of covenant theology, you're going to end up holding the two kingdom view, the pessimistic view, so to speak. Um, and I'm
The
using that.
amillennial view.
I'm using it. Well, you get optimistic and pessimistic. Now, I realize that Klein himself didn't like that term, and I'm using it knowing that it's an irritating term, because what do we mean? When we say pessimistic, I mean we're actually being super optimistic, because we're talking about the kingdom coming in eschatological glory. But
Yeah.
let's just give that away for now and just say, all right, there is a kind of admitted pessimism. We might suffer for the sake of the gospel, and it might
Yeah.
really not go well for us, and that's what we mean then. And so a lot of people who would embrace that sort of Kleinian take would say that, okay, well, it's kind of moving in that direction only. There are, however, and many who are against Klein have sort of opted for the other view, and have opted for a different covenant theology, which is what we need to talk about. How does that drive that? People need to
Yeah.
understand how
You know
the
who's, the little one liner that keeps coming to mind, something Michael Horton would say over and over. I'm not sure if he got it from someone else, but as goes the head, so goes the body.
mm,
As goes the king, so goes the kingdom.
mm-hmm,
So if Jesus Christ, as the covenant head,
mm-hmm,
had a ministry of humiliation which preceded his exaltation,
mm.
then we as the church are going to have a ministry of humiliation which will precede our own exaltation.
Does make sense.
Yeah, as
Seems
goes
to
the
seems
head,
to
so
work.
goes the body. As goes
Yeah.
the king, so goes the kingdom. And so this is tagging that onto More Than Conquerors by William Hendrickson.
Mm,
There's that paradoxical humility where we overcome through being sacrificed and dying sacrificially in the likeness of Christ.
mm.
That we triumph through that apparent defeat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's the nature of the kingdom now. As
Yeah.
goes the head, so goes the body. As goes the king, so goes the kingdom. And it's through many tribulations that we enter into the kingdom of God. Acts 14.
Mm.
That's what Paul and Barnabas preached to the first Gentile churches.
So,
And
like, what
that's,
are we
yeah.
saying? What are we saying if we say, no, actually, we kind of get we have our triumph first, we just like, when we buckle that whole trend. I mean, it's a little bit like saying the servant is greater than the master.
Yeah.
you know
And what we can recognize is that there are little moments of God's providence where he pours out a greater time of blessing. Maybe there's a revival. Maybe there's
yeah,
a larger influence of Christianity on a nation like Wales, or through the ministry of George Whitefield and the
or even
Wesleys, and
Christendom at large, right?
yeah, even Christendom at large. We recognize the sovereign hand of God in it, though it's not prescribed.
Yeah, yeah,
God was still sovereign over it all.
of course, yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, right throughout church history, you've got this thing we mentioned before, but like we have on the show talked about. You might even want to go refer back to this, because I'm pretty sure we recorded an episode on the Didache. I remember doing that with you. I don't know if we actually got it uploaded or something.
it's uploaded.
Okay, good. So we got it up there, and so maybe go. If anyone's interested, go and look at that, because there you start seeing this two kingdom motif. Obviously they're not calling it the Reformed two kingdom thing. They're just talking about, here we have two kingdoms, we have two realities. How are we going to live in the world? One I love reading to the church, I've read it like a million times, they're getting so sick of it, and I just keep reading it, and I'm just going to make everyone memorize it, is the epistle to Diognetus,
Yep.
because it is just such a fantastic, like, this is how it really works. This is a display of how Christianity works in a world that is not Christian, pre-Christendom. Is why those documents are so important. They have such an affinity to what's going on now, because we're losing all that Christendom stuff. And then maybe even to a degree, I mean, City of God is kind of doing a slightly different thing, but at the same time, Augustine seeing Rome fall, there's the end of Christendom to begin with, anyway, and he's trying to account for that and showing, well, actually, there's this kingdom of God,
Yeah.
you know. But the most interesting one for us is Luther's two kingdom, and we'll talk about this constantly right throughout, in that, Lutheranism have had a strong grip on this paradox view, as Niebuhr called it, the Christ and culture in paradox. There's just this tension. It's like exactly what you were describing. There are going to be some times where we have a seeming victory of sorts, but ultimately we know it doesn't carry the day, and what's actually
Yeah.
carrying the day is our losing is actually winning, and that's this paradox that's
Yeah.
happening right throughout.
And any moment of victory, any moment of restraining grace, any moment where Christianity does come into a dominant position is merely for God's purpose of allowing the gospel to prosper more, not so that
Right.
that's actually that. So that becomes the backdrop to the main event, which is the gospel prospering.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah.
might have peace, that the church can worship freely, that the gospel can go forward from the
Yeah.
Western nations that have been bountifully blessed with Western civilization, which is built on Christendom,
And it
to
might
take the
even
gospel to
be
the ends of the earth.
exactly, and in that whole prospering scenario, I mean, what we if anything what we pick up is the church kind of doesn't really do that well, actually. It actually ends up kind of, we
There's
have
all
to.
sorts of capitulation and negotiation, and they get watered down by culture.
Yes. So
Yeah,
we have to end up like recovering from those times, even if it does serve the ultimate advancement of the gospel. It's sort of like not really the ideal. Well, it's the ideal in the sense we all want peace. We all want the peace of the
yeah,
city. We seek the peace of the city. Certainly, in its peace is our peace. Certainly, but at the same time, you can get a little too comfortable in Babylon.
yep,
It's very, very easy to do. Um, so this is the stuff we'll talk about. I mean, in the Reformed tradition, the guys that are key are obviously Van Drunen. They are he is spelling out a lot of what he sees the implications being, especially if you hold a covenant theology like Klein. You got Matthew Tuninger, who wrote a lot of helpful stuff about Calvin, and so we'll refer to those guys, and we'll just kind of what I want to do along the way is just kind of, if it's a good book worth your time, then it'd be worth, us just talking about a little bit along the way. But if it's just one of those things that, is less important, if you're reading through the book and should I get this, should I get that, should I read this, we'll try and spell that out. The other thing is, obviously we want to, I think it's unavoidable, we'll look at a lot of the neo-Calvinist guys, as we go
yeah,
through, because they're sort of having their renaissance now, I think. And
yep.
in fact, there
Well,
have
there's
been
been a revival in Kuyperian studies,
yeah.
Bavinkian studies.
Yes.
So a lot of the early Dutch thought on these issues is getting clarified, and there's a new precision which is coming
Yeah.
forward. So
And
and
there've been
that's
some,
great. We're grateful for that. Yeah.
totally, and there's some new good books that have been put out since this one was published, like,
Mm.
believe it or not. So we need to look at those as well. We'll at least make mention of them. Don't know how deep we'll be able to get, but anyway, so that's kind of some of the stuff we'll look at. And what else can we say by way of intro? um I think the big thing is just to, I want everyone to go through this, and I mean, if they take nothing out of it but this, just to know that their view of like where exactly their view of covenant theology affects their view of culture, and
Yep.
to just see those. It's not easy to see those dots, unless you've looked at it, or unless you've really had to think through either one of those issues. Usually, it's a painful journey to find that point. So if we could just help, spell that out and just connect those dots a little bit more easily, and even if it's that people, end up disagreeing with us, even if it's sort of helped clarify where those issues
Yeah.
lie, I think that'll be a good thing. And usually, what I find happens when you dialogue on these issues with, even, you start off kind of rabid enemies almost, just through pushing in on the subject, just to know exactly where the disagreement lies. You still
Yeah.
might not be best of friends at the end of it, but it's like there's more respect, and there's more kind of, okay, well, I could see where you're making that point and why you're making that point. I can't go along with it, but I'm not so full on against it, as I was. Um, so anyway, I
Yeah, for
think that's a
sure.
good place to land it now. Um, Good.
So much to look forward to. So opening up Mike's PhD and opening up the world of covenant theology as it applies to every area in life.
And
some guest speaker and some guests on the podcast.
And after that, glory itself. Which is like, so definitely good stuff on the way. Cool. Awesome.
Cool, man.